why don't we start with you giving us a breakdown of exactly what happened on Friday?
Yeah, I know that this story of the lions, really made news. And last Friday was probably one of the busiest days where we really talked about lions and lions and lions. But probably we should go back a little bit to the last 2, 3 weeks before that event happened, and where we used to receive reports from the barracks. The barracks, the Langata barracks, that is, are right next to the park. In fact, the vegetation is just an extension of it. You wouldn't tell the difference except for the fence that divides us. And the lions were finding their way and going in there. They affected the barracks because they killed their goats, they killed a cow, and therefore it was a big concern, and particularly because there are people walking around and they live there. So they would call Nairobi National Park, which is the one that deals with the wildlife now around Nairobi area, and the warden would send the team. So they would go on, they would look for them. It's a big area with a lot of bushes and trees, and it's not easy to really just see directly. And because of the expansiveness, it's also not easy to just kind of like go in there and net it around and then beat out and tell the lions to get out. So, but the disturbances, when a vehicle goes in there, if it's at night with all the lights and people talking, then they would realize that it's like they're not wanted in that particular place. So they would go back to the park. And therefore, when the reports became persistent, the senior warden actually also checked the fence, to see where exactly were they going through. And they discovered that there were certain culverts that they were crossing through. So as they were closing the culverts, so that then it would be easy to really contain the lions within the barracks and then be able to pick them from there, they got a report that actually one of the lionesses had been seen with cubs. So that was now early last week. So that explained why they were so frequent in the barracks, why they kept going and coming back and going and coming back, because the natural history of the lions dictate that when the female is about to give birth, it secludes herself, and it might go with an auntie or a sister or someone, some relative, and go on the side, away from the main family, away from most of the other animals. And this is because lions are very territorial, and they have specific areas. Their carrying capacities of many long studies and observations have been known to require a lot of space. Nairobi National Park, for example, should have maybe about 10 lions in total. It's 117 square kilometers. But the population, because of the area that it goes out into the south, the population goes to about between 35 and 40, which is about the period that we've reached. And therefore the prides, because they have to occupy certain specific places, would always kind of like trying to push their habitat, to try and push their territory. And the female would then now want to go in a secluded place. So the pride that is around this area, which is next to now the border with that particular area, the female was able to push the territory and then go to a secluded place. It just turns out that this was the barracks. And that's the reason why we had that back and forth reports. So about Tuesday or so, the decision was now made. We've closed the culverts. We've now known that the female is with the cubs. So it's definite that they are within that particular area of the barracks. And that means that other than go to chase them to go back to the park, which is what the team was doing before, it would require that they actually do a translocation. So we called in our experts, the guys who deal with translocations. So it would mean that they would probably either drive them into some cage or, if necessary, tranquilize them so that they could be able to carry them. And that is the exercise that was now planned for Thursday. So Thursday last week. So the whole day they went in out there, and usually for you to call out the lions, there's a callback system where you've recorded lion voices, and then you call out, you play them over loudspeaker. And they did that, the whole of Thursday. They called out and they just refused. They either decided these are not lions we know, or why would we want to go out there, and particularly during the day. Between 11 and about 4, when it gets very hot, the lions will not get out. And they spend a lot of time sleeping and resting. But they didn't react. So about 6:30, the team that was doing that calling left. And so we put in a monitoring team, that's the one that deals with human-wildlife conflict, just to monitor, so that in case they showed up, would now call in the team the following day. So about 7 o'clock, the barracks team called and said, we've actually seen them. They are here. So please, come back. You spend the whole day here, you call and they didn't respond, but they're here. And so the team went back again. And they looked around, now with spotlights, driving the vehicles around. So that constant disturbance now over the night is what we think caused the mother to then be able to call what is a decoy. In other words, they mislead you deliberately, take you away from where the cabs are, so that they're able to protect those cabs. And so they decided, let's pretend that we live in Kibera. And that's the reason why now they went away. The idea was to take away attention from where the cabs would be, and they headed out towards Kibera. They hoped that the vegetation would be the same, that there would be an extension of forest, and that if they went there, then for us to find them, it would take even longer. But that's the time that now we started getting these reports. So a motorist was now going back this way, and the motorist reported 4. Said, I have seen these 4 lionesses, and I know they're lionesses, not German shepherds, not local dogs. I know that they're lions. And he reported at the gate. They also got a report that went to the police of now people who came and said, I'm preparing to go to work. Now it's about 4 a.m. in the morning, and I have seen. So the information between 1 and 2, the first report, then about 3, a second report, and somebody who walked back and said, I have seen lions and I can't continue. So he went to report to some watchman and said, there's something that I have seen there, and I can't walk on that particular area. So these are just reports that we are receiving. And the team went out after having disturbed them until about 11 at night or something like that, and then seeing nothing. They then now had to respond to this call, that they had seen them on Langata Road. So this was unusual, because it's not recent that we have heard that they've been seen within that particular area. But that's the explanation we're seeing because of the disturbance for the whole of Thursday, the whole of part of Thursday night, and they decided they were not making headways. And particularly because, remember, we had closed the culverts. So trying to go that direction, they find it's closed. And they decided, no, something is really wrong here, so we've got to come up with a good plan, and quickly. So the third report was somebody who was now, when the team was going down to check between that Langata Hospital, which is a turn-off to Otiende, and going down all the way to the intersection between Langata and the Southern Bypass, they actually met somebody who was frantically trying to stop a vehicle, and maybe that was about 3 or 4. So he said, look, I've seen lions here, and he was told, okay, you get in the vehicle and help us to try and see, but they didn't see anything. And as they were patrolling and checking that area and sending another team to go into now the estate, which is past the police station, Langata police station, into that particular area, they got another report on the Southern Bypass next to the National Housing Corporation, and somebody said, now I've seen 2. So it dropped now from 4 to 2, and then it was 2. It was the consistent report now was for 2 that had been cited. And therefore, we are reacting to just those reports. Our teams never actually saw them, but they actually responded, to those reports. So that morning of Friday, they started by checking that area, because between the National Hospital, the National Housing Corporation, and the block that is Langata, there is a lot of vegetation there, and plantations of maize, and plantations of bananas and sugarcane. So we thought that they probably would be hiding there. So that was an area that was searched thoroughly on Friday morning, and then the wall of the National Housing Corporation, that was also searched. So by about 10:30, they had not seen anything. Of course, some of the media houses had already gotten there, and they were now checking. Of course, we had big batches of the media house here, and we were also now discussing with them, but we were in touch with the teams, and that team was led by the senior warden for Nairobi National Park. So when they didn't see them there, they actually came back to the barracks, because we suspected that after they had been out there, if they were 4, as they were reported in the first instance, they must have separated and said, you guys continue surveying and see where we can be able to come and pretend that we live here. But in the meantime, I need to go and check. Come on, my sis, come with me. Let's go and check how the kids are doing. So we think that the fact that now they were not seen in the other 2 subsequent reports means that they came back and they came to look at this. In the meantime, in the barracks, it was quiet. We had not picked up anything. So we weren't kind of like driving all around and spotlighting. So it was quiet. So they just came back and stayed. And the other ones must have surveyed and checked and seen it wasn't the right place to be, and they went back. So that time between 8 and 10:30 as we were searching, they were already back. And we weren't seeing anything on that side. There's been a lot of sightings of lions in the park because the population is between 35 and 40. And usually when it gets to that level, what they call technically the population crashes. So it will reduce based on a number of factors, some of the cubs not making it because they're not getting full attention. Others may be killed by males, and this is part of the reason why the female has to seclude herself and put them aside. Others may be subjected to human-wildlife conflict. So when something like that happens, they peak, and they're able to show. They're able to show that the population is crashing, and that is something that has been happening over many years. So long studies of the lions of Nairobi National Park have indicated that. So every now and then they will try and push their territory. So you'll get a report that they've been seen in Hadi, in Karen. In 2001, 2002, they were seen at the Riverside in Westlands. So they would usually expand their territory because they are territorial, and they would fight seriously over the specific territories for the different tribes.